Where did we come from? The Bible says, in the beginning, God created. Evolution teaches the opposite. No one created. It all happened by itself. Which one is the truth? This is Headquarters. Doc M. Jackie. And Rich. Their job? Investigate and discover the truth. This is The Creation Case.
Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning, Doc M. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. But I don't think the rest of the world is.
What do you mean?
You wouldn't believe it. Well, I was getting up this morning and my alarm clock broke. I was on my way out the door, tie my shoelace broke. I walk outside and a sprinkler breaks. Big old gush of water.
Wow. Well, hopefully nothing will break on you here.
Whoa.
What happened to your favorite chair?
I think today just happened to my favorite chair. I guess I won't be rolling around in the office.
Oh, well, don't worry. Eventually everything breaks down.
Well, apparently today is the day for that.
Why?
Well, look at this letter I just got from, here it is, Rosie in Jupiter, Florida.
Why, is everything breaking down in Florida too?
No, but you're not far off. Listen to this interesting letter. Dear Headquarters, I have a cousin that lives up in Missouri, and his town had some flooding last week with those storms that went through again. Their barn was destroyed when the river overflowed, and his school was in 3 feet of water. His town is a mess now, and they're trying to fix all the damage. Well, our town isn't underwater, but it sure feels like a mess. She continues. So the next day in school, we get in this big discussion in science class because one of my classmates asked if in a million years all the flooding would destroy Missouri and make it into the next Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Interesting. Crazy. There's more. So then it turns out a big part of our class believes that God created the earth and that a flood eroded the surface of our planet. Another smaller group has no idea what they believe, and the rest of the class and our teacher believe the surface of the world is a mess because of millions of years of erosion. So my question, it's a good question, is there any evidence in nature that shows us how our world really got eroded? Thank you, Rosie. Suddenly a broken chair doesn't seem so important.
I know. It's so cool that all those kids stood up for creation.
That's right. We need to get this message out to Rich ASAP.
You got it, Doc.
Good. Where is Rich anyway?
Well, I just got a text from him a little while ago. He said he was on a cliff.
On a cliff? Really?
I think. Sometimes I don't know what his texts mean.
Should I be worried? Nah.
Do you have a creation question for Headquarters? Send your questions to Doc, Jackie, and Rich by visiting our website at thecreationcase.com.
That must be HQ.
Hi, Rich. I hope everything's okay. Doc M has your next assignment ready. We need you to investigate what's happened to the surface of our planet. It's easy to see that our planet has been through a lot of erosion because of all the canyons we see. Does the evidence show that this happened because of a global flood? How and when did all of this happen? Don't worry, he was just concerned about your on a cliff comment.
Oh.
Just worry about the assignment, erosion, and stay safe. We look forward to your report.
Erosion. Got it. Let me let HQ know I got the assignment. Got message. Erosion. Safely off cliff. Soon. All right, let me write this in my journal. Erosion. Cool, erosion. You know what? We're actually at the perfect starting point. We're in the Badlands National Park in South Dakota. To really appreciate how water carved up this place, we should take a look from above. I got a really good idea. Come on.
Even though wind is also a cause of erosion, my focus today is on erosion from water, the most destructive form of erosion our planet has ever seen.
Let's take a helicopter ride. We'll get a great view of what happened here.
The Badlands are named this way because the early explorers said they were bad lands to cross. Lots of marine fossils are found here, which shows us this whole area was once underwater. The Bible says the floodwaters covered the earth for months. Eventually, water drains down to lower ground. When a lot of water is involved, it results in a lot of damage. That's what we see here. Miles and miles of this part of the desert was cut up by retreating water. This was not caused by some little rain.
There's more. See those layers there? Evolution teaches that each one of those layers was put down millions of years apart.
The problem is the line between the layers is perfectly smooth. Do you know any spot on the Earth where the current top layer is perfectly smooth? No. Smooth layers means the layers were deposited there quickly, one after another underwater. Then, huge erosion like this would happen when all the water drained away, downhill over this soft rock.
What we actually see here is more in line with the biblical flood. You know, there's another great place that we can go visit to see how erosion has reshaped the surface of the earth. We need to go to Bryce Canyon in Utah. There's a lot of amazing things to see on the way, too. Come on.
Help us investigate today. Download and print your own free journal study guide at thecreationcase.com.
If we're going to talk about erosion, it's important to understand that water is the biggest cause of erosion. We're going to drive right by Shoshone Falls in Idaho. We should stop and check it out.
Shoshone Falls is one of the most amazing waterfalls in the United States. It's over 200 feet high, 45 feet higher than Niagara Falls, plus it's over 1,000 feet wide. What an incredible view! Waterfalls are an amazing display of the power of water. Sometimes there are floods and tsunamis in the world, and we are reminded how powerful water is and how it can damage anything in its path.
When water and earth go up against each other, let me tell you, water always wins. Let me show you this little video clip of a dam in Wisconsin that broke.
Once the water broke through, there was nothing on the planet that could stop that water from coming out and going downhill and making a big mess along the way.
When we talk about erosion after the flood, we're talking about a massive destructive power. Imagine that on a global scale. God knew that the most effective method
To destroy life on the planet was with water.
Welcome to Bryce Canyon, one of the best places to see the effects
The flood may have had on the earth. Bryce Canyon is actually not a canyon. It's the edge of a high plateau that has eroded away by water. We're really high up here. The rim is between 8,000 and 9,000 feet above sea level.
According to the Bible, the earth was flooded with water so high that it covered all the mountains. Of course, that means this part of the United States was also flooded. So after 150 days, the waters finally started to drain down. We find a lot of evidence that this whole part of Utah was underwater for a while because we find a lot of marine fossils buried here. Eventually, the water level got lower and lower and lower.
Places like this may have been formed by receding waters. Because of that, the rock is pretty soft. I need to be careful.
This layer of rock here is very soft. It's called Sedimentary Rock because at one point this was at the bottom of the sea and it was loose sand, and then it hardened. Check it out. It looks like rock, but it's still pretty soft.
Because of this soft rock, water has cut some amazing hoodoos in this place.
One of the main differences between creation and evolution is that evolution doesn't give God credit for creating and owning this planet. The other main difference is time. You see, evolution teaches that everything has been pretty much the same for millions of years and has been changing slowly. Creation, on the other hand, teaches that God created the world recently and that the world was reshaped by a flood. Which one is true? We are looking for clues and evidence to try to figure that out.
Clues and evidence will lead us to the truth.
Actually, let me show you something. It's a picture of a canyon in Georgia. It's called Providence Canyon. It's a beautiful canyon, 150 feet deep in some parts. Do you think it was formed millions of years ago? It was only formed 150 years ago. First thing to remember, it doesn't take millions of years to form a canyon. It just takes the right conditions. I think I'm going to write that down in my journal.
It doesn't take millions of years to form canyons, just the right conditions.
Another example of that is the volcanic eruption at Mount St. Helens in Washington in 1980. Shortly after the eruption, huge canyons were formed practically overnight. Remember, you don't need millions of years to form canyons, just the right conditions. If we think about it, what kind of evidence would we expect to see if a global flood did happen? If the world was covered by one big giant ocean during the flood, we would expect to see a large deposit of sediment at the bottom of the ocean. Nice, smooth layers. We would see evidence of the floodwaters draining away from the higher places. We'd see billions of land, sea, and air creatures buried rapidly all over the world. We'd find evidence of massive amounts of vegetation that got ripped up and buried rapidly. If a global flood did happen, those are the kind of features we would expect to see. So, what do we see? Exactly that. We see layers and layers of sediment neatly deposited, canyons that show how water quickly eroded the land, billions of creatures buried in the ground, huge amounts of buried vegetation that have now turned into coal and oil. All of these things can be seen on every continent of the world. It seems like the planet itself provides tons of evidence that a global flood did occur. A coincidence? I don't think so.
Every step leads us farther down. As we descend, we become surrounded by the hoodoos.
What an amazing view. I've got to sketch this. You know what? I have an idea. Why don't we go visit one of the most dramatic examples of erosion in the world? Come on. Let's get back to the Jeep. We are heading to the Grand Canyon.
Hi everyone, it's Doc M here at HQ. If Rich is investigating erosion today, I just know the flood will be part of his investigation. You know, almost everyone has heard of the flood story in the Bible. Here's a classic painting. The ark. Oh, look, cute little sheep and lions and everything. Some people choose not to believe in the Bible. They just assume the flood is not a true story then. What many people don't know is that the Bible is only one of the many historical documents in the world that talks about the flood. Yeah. Historians have documented almost 300 stories from ancient historical texts from all over the world that talk about a flood and the basic storyline as told in the Bible. Look, these are some of the modern and ancient names and countries and cultures besides the Bible that describe ancient stories about an enormous flood. Argentina. Assyrian Babylon, that's modern day Iraq. Australia, Bolivia, Brazil, British Columbia and Canada, Cameroon, Chile, China, Ecuador, Egypt, Germany, Greece, India, the Ivory Coast, Kenya, Korea, Mexico, Mongolia, Nigeria, New Guinea, New Zealand, Peru, the Philippines, Rome, Scandinavia, Siberia, Thailand, Turkey. Wow! And even in the United States, dozens of Native American stories about a great flood, even from Alaska. That's almost 300 different stories, and some of these documents are thousands of years old. Is it really a coincidence that people from practically every corner of the world wrote about the same huge event? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Look at this ancient Chinese word. This is the Chinese character or the Chinese word for large vessel. ship. The word is made up of 3 separate characters. Look at what the 3 characters are. Ship, right here, 8 up there, and people right there in the bottom right. All together make a large vessel. Even languages that are thousands of years old tell the story of the great flood. That's why I'm convinced and believe more than ever that God is my creator.
Hey everyone, it's me, Rich Aguilera. I'd love to see you at one of our live events. To see where I'll be speaking, visit our website, thecreationcase.com.
You know what? I've got to pull over so you can see this. This is one of the most amazing parts of the southwestern desert.
What seems like an endless desert here continues to amaze me with these incredible views.
This place is called Monument Valley. A long time ago, this used to be a giant ancient sea until the water drained away and eroded these cool mountain formations.
These tall formations are called buttes. They show us how the different rock layers each contain different elements that erode differently. Isn't it amazing that everywhere we look, there is evidence of erosion by water?
This is the Grand Canyon. No one ever forgets the first time they arrive here and look over the rim, down into the canyon. A lot of people think that this is just a big giant crack in the ground, but it's not. We're actually 7,000 feet above sea level on a high plateau. The bottom of the canyon is still 2,500 feet above sea level. It's amazing to think how big this canyon is. It's about 18 miles across at its widest point and almost 270 miles from end to end. To get a good look at this place, we need to hike down into the canyon. Come on, let's go.
As we head down into the canyon, the first thing we find are steep switchbacks and very uneven terrain.
Here at the Grand Canyon, evolution teaches that the Colorado River at the bottom carved out this canyon over millions of years, but physical evidence points more to massive erosion. After a global flood, you would expect to see massive lakes and seas forming all over the world. If a lake were, say, 8,000 feet above sea level, you would expect it would want to drain to lower ground. That's a lot of pressure, a lot of water trying to get to lower ground. If a small leak were to develop, the earth would give way to a massive torrent of water. That's actually what we see here. It appears that this high desert was at the edge of a huge inland sea after the flood. As the waters drained, this edge of that sea wasn't able to hold back those waters and they rushed down towards the Pacific. The pressure of all that water eventually carved this canyon into the ground.
It's possible that at the end of the flood, water from that large inland sea rushed down into the Pacific Ocean right through here.
The Colorado River cuts down the middle of this canyon, but there are also hundreds of very deep side canyons here too. There's no evidence that a river cut those side canyons. So how did they get there? It appears that they were carved quickly by one massive event. Tons of water gushing through here, not millions of years of rivers.
The rate of erosion today is slow, It's caused by natural events as well as man, but the dramatic erosion that happened here was caused by something huge.
The other thing about the Colorado River, it enters a canyon at about 2,800 feet above sea level and exits the canyon at about 1,800 feet above sea level. Water runs downhill, right? But as the river is going down in elevation, the land around it is only going higher. A river couldn't have carved this canyon because rivers can't flow uphill.
It's very possible that this canyon was eroded at the end of the flood as the waters receded.
Another thing is the smooth lines between layers. We can see it here at the Grand Canyon, we saw it at Bryce Canyon, and we also saw it at the Badlands. Evolution teaches that each one of these layers at some point was the top layer, millions of years ago. But have you ever seen perfectly smooth top layers all over the world? No, these layers were laid down at the same time.
There is some evidence that some layers tilted sometime after they were deposited, and that they were eventually covered up by new layers. This event seems to have really turned the world upside down.
Sometimes fossils can be found going through multiple layers. How could a log or an animal become partially buried, wait there for 1,000,000 years, and finish getting buried? This also shows that no time passed between layers. I think I'm going to write that in my journal.
Fossils that go through multiple layers are evidence that there are not millions of years between layers.
Over and over, the evidence here points to the layers of sediment that were quickly deposited on this earth, as well as the massive amount of erosion that carved the surface of our planet. We sure visited some amazing places for today's assignment. Water looks so harmless when you drink a cup of it, but the evidence we've seen today shows us water has enormous destructive power, especially when there's a lot of it involved. Well, I need to finish up my report and send it to HQ. Remember, if you want to read it, just go to our website.
There is so much evidence on the surface of our planet that shows how water has eroded the landscape all over. It doesn't take millions of years to form canyons, just the right conditions. Fossils that go through multiple layers are evidence that there are not millions of years between layers.
When something erodes, it pretty much always means something is getting destroyed. If there's one thing we need to protect from erosion, it's our relationship with God. How does that happen? The Bible says in Psalms 101:3 that our eyes shouldn't look at things that are wicked. That means you have to be careful of what you watch or do. What kind of movies or TV do you let your eyes watch? What about the things you see on the internet? Or what kind of books do you read? Another thing, don't wait for someone else to tell you what is good or bad. Start being responsible for your own decisions and avoid things that will erode your relationship with God. I hope you'll join me again for our next assignment. Remember, God the Creator loves what He creates, especially you. Good night.